Hello everyone, this video is about non-deterministic Turing machines and why they have the same computational power as deterministic ones. This means deterministic Turing machines, or DTMs as I will be calling them, can recognize and or decide the same languages as NTMs. This works because you can simulate any NTM using a TTM, and that is exactly what we are going to talk about. Here's our example language L. The NTM that will accept L we will call N, and this will be our example non-deterministic Turing machine. L will consist of any string of A's of length 1 or of an even length. So examples will include 6 A's, 1 A, or an empty string, because 0 is an even number. Here is the state diagram representing N. This is based on N's transition function. The arrows represent transitions that are possible based on specific configurations. The left character on the arrow is the current tab contents, and the right character is the direction that the head will move in that transition. Other state diagrams you may have seen include something for the head to write down as it moves, but in N we are going to simply reading the type. We are not going to change it at all. In determinism, a given configuration, which is the current state, the type contents, and also the location of the head, which we will show in a second in an illustration. So any given configuration yields one and on another configuration. So in this example, if you are in state Q1 and you read a blank symbol, you go to state Q reject. That's the only thing that's possible given that configuration. Non-determinism is when a given configuration can yield more than one. And we have an example here where n reads an a in state q0. It can either move to state q1 or q3. So if it in this configuration in state q0, the type contents is a and the head is in the first position, it can either move to this configuration q1 or this configuration q3. Now let's look at two computation trees. These trees are models of the transitions or computations and will make given a specific input. So this is the computation tree for the input of an empty string. We start at q0 because that's the starting state, and reads a blank symbol and then moves to q. That's the only transition that makes. This is a tree for the input of a single, and we start at q0 and then non-determinism takes over. It can either move to q1 or q3. Those are the two possible transitions or computations. If the transition to q1, then it will go to q reject after reading a blank. If it transition to q3, it will go to q accept also after reading a blank, regardless of how many branches reject. If any of them end in an accept state, that means the machine accepts the input. So N will accept input as we have talked about. Okay, now let's get into how to simulate a non-deterministic Turing machine with a deterministic Turing machine. Here is our non-deterministic computation tree based on N's transition function and the input of 2s. First, let's kind of understand a model of how our deterministic Turing machine is going to work. Like how let's visualize what type of computation it's going to do. So basically our machine is going to search this tree for any accept state. Our instinct might be to search each branch to its end. That would be called a depth first search. The thing is that it doesn't work because one branch might infinitely loop and our machine will be stuck forever. So if this branch infinitely looped, we are just searching down here and we are never reach this q accept. Instead of, what we should do is a breadth first search. This is where we check each node from left to right and we go down by rows. Our machine will need some way to keep track of its location as it searches the tree. So imagine each node is assigned a numerical label. So the leftmost node is 1 because we took the first branch, and then this would be 2. We add digits based on which number decisions we took to get to each node. So this node we make decision 2 and then decision 1. It doesn't matter if there is only one decision, this will count it as 1. So then this node's location is 2 1. We understand the number of locations. We understand that our machine is going to search through these nodes in a breadth first search order. Sorry, first search order. So for this, we are going to create an algorithm. We are going to start with B, which is the maximum number of non-deterministic choices any node in the computation tree can make. In our example, B equals to, so go back to no, yeah, Q0. Yes. So B is 2. Then imagine a set of strings containing all the whole numbers from 1 to B. So if B is 5, this would contain the strings 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. In this it's 2. So sigma simply contains string 1 and string 2. So what the algorithm is going to do is iterate through the set of sigma plus. Now understand this, sigma plus is very similar to sigma star, which you might be more familiar with, but it doesn't include the empty string. So the plus operator when applied to sigma is going to attach any number of strings in sigma together to get a new string in all of the different possible combinations. So it's going to take a string 1 and string 2 and basically put them together in every possible order. Now our algorithm is going to run through the members of sigma plus in order of the number of digits and numerically. So it's going to go through the member with 1 digit and then the member with 2 digit, and within those groups depending on digits it's going to run through them numerically. So it's going to run through them in the order shown on screen. Now that we understand the algorithm, we would construct a Turing machine that implements it, would make B as its input and would write each successive member of sigma plus into the step. So this is what its step would look like. Go through all of the members of sigma plus. We are going to take this Turing machine and make it part of larger Turing machine that we are building to deterministically simulate. So this is the model. Multi-type Turing machines are equivalent in computational power to single types ones, and but I am not gonna do that as proof. So first we are gonna go through all of these types, but first let's wrap up of our understanding of the third type. So the third type of our M is going to be the type of the Turing machine that we talked about 2 slides ago. The idea is that M has to take n's transition function and go through it in a deterministic way. And type 3 serves as the extra input to take these non-deterministic choices and make them deterministic. When M consists n's transition function is confronted with multiple options, it's going to look at type 3 to see which choices to make. And the algorithm behind type 3 will make sure that these choices are in the order of breadth first search of n's computation tree. So it will tell it to go to make the first choice and then the second choice we go left to right down this tree. This is why I'll be referring to the contents of tab 3 as a path. You can imagine it as a list of directions for M to take when with a non-deterministic transition function. Now let's talk about the other two types. The first type is where the input goes. That's not going to change as M goes through its computation. The second type is the simulation type. This is where all the computation is really going to happen. If this was an NTM, this would be the only type that we would need. Now that we understand the purpose of 3 types, let's talk about how the machine runs as a whole. Basically, it continuously cycles through a loop. This loop starts by copying the contents of type 1 onto type 2 and then having type 3's algorithm generate its first path. There are 3 conditions under which the loop resets. Type 3 runs out of numbers. Type 3 gives an invalid path, which is when type 3 tells M to make a decision that just isn't possibility, and then we look examples of that, or M reaches a reject state. Consists of clearing types 2 and 3, and you repeat this loop until each branch has been explored, each branch of n's computation tree. Once each branch has been explored, if you only encounter reject states, reject the input. If you ever encounter an accept state, accept the input. If every branch of every tree ends in a halting configuration, your machine decides the language. If it ever loops, then it's a recognizer. Now that we understand a high level description of this machine, let's get into an example. First, the input, which is 2s, goes on to the first tape. Second, we copy the input onto the second tape. Third, our third tape algorithm generates the first number or its first path. Here is a better view of our tape 2 in its starting position. M sees this configuration, and according to n's transition function, it has two choices to make. So consults tape 3, sees a 1 and makes the first choice. Moving on to this configuration, there are no more symbols on tape 3, so we reset the loop. The loop starts again by copying the input back onto tape 2, and you might have noticed that we have cleared tape 2 only to let's see, this is resetting the entire setup. We are using a read-only example, so reset doesn't appear to do anything. It is a crucial part of the general function of how to simulate NTMs. Then our third tape will generate its new path. A2, we make the second choice of n's dot deterministic transition function, and we go to Q1. Again, we run out of symbols on tape 3, and the loop resets. The loop starts again by copying type 1 onto type 2, and then the next path is generated 1 1. From here we take the first state Q3. First we take state Q3, and then the head on tape 2 is reading an 8. And according to our transfer function, there isn't any additional configuration to yield. If you are in state Q3 and you read an A, there is nowhere to go from there. This means there is no first choice to make, so it's an invalid path. And we reset the loop. So type 3's next path is 1 2, which again is an invalid. And the way that you can visualize the invalidity of a path is by nothing. So there is no location 1 1 and there is no location 1 2. I'm not going to show all these details because it runs out of symbols. It's the same thing we ran into with 1 and 2. Then we skip all of this because they are all invalid, as you see numbered. Yeah, number location. Finally we get to these iterations on M will move from this configuration. It will take its second dot deterministic choice into this configuration, and then it continues down into this configuration where its header reads blank and then it accepts.